The morning sun was already getting hot when Tom pulled his old pickup truck to a stop near the broken fence post. He'd been working this ranch for 15 years, and he knew every inch of the 3,000 acres like the back of his weathered hands. Today was supposed to be just another routine day checking the fence lines, making sure the cattle hadn't wandered too far, and fixing whatever damage the recent storm had caused. Tom stepped out of his truck and pulled, his worn cowboy hat down to shade his eyes from the bright Texas sun. The smell of dry grass and dust filled his nostrils as he walked toward the damaged section of fence. A few posts were leaning at odd angles, and the barbed wire was tangled up like Christmas lights after a toddler got hold of them. He grabbed his tools from the truck bed and started working on the first post. The physical work felt good. There was something satisfying about fixing things with your own hands, seeing immediate results from your effort. Tom had always preferred this kind of work to sitting behind a desk somewhere, staring at a computer screen all day. As he hammered a new post into the hard ground, movement in the distance caught his eye. At first, he thought it might be a deer or maybe one of his horses that had gotten loose from the pasture closer to the house. But when he looked up and squinted against the sun, he realized it was a person. Someone was running across the open field about a quarter-mile away. That was strange. This was private property, and there weren't any public trails or roads that would bring joggers out this far. Tom set down his hammer and reached for the binoculars he kept in his truck. Through the lenses, he could see it was a woman, and she wasn't dressed like someone out for a casual morning run. The woman was wearing what looked like pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt. Her long brown hair was flying behind her as she ran. And even from this distance, Tom could tell something was wrong. She wasn't jogging. She was running like someone was chasing her. Tom lowered the binoculars and looked around the empty landscape. He didn't see anyone else, no other vehicles, nothing that would explain why this woman was running so desperately across his family's ranch. His instincts, sharpened by years of living in rural Texas where neighbors looked out for each other, told him this woman needed help. He threw his tools back into the truck and started driving toward her. As he got closer, he could see that she was carrying something against her chest. The way she held it, protective and careful even while running, made him realize it was a baby. Tom's heart started beating faster. A woman running across empty ranch land with a baby in her arms meant trouble. Big trouble. He'd lived in this county long enough to know that people didn't end up in situations like this unless something very bad was happening. When he was about 50 yards away, the woman saw his truck approaching. Instead of running away from him, she changed direction and started running toward him. That told Tom everything he needed to know. She wasn't running from random danger. She was running from something specific, something that his presence might help her escape. Tom slowed the truck and rolled down his window. The woman reached his vehicle and practically collapsed against the driver's side door. She was breathing so hard she could barely speak, and tears were streaming down her face. The baby in her arms was crying, a thin, hungry sound that cut through the morning air. "Please," she gasped, looking up at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Please help me, I need to hide." "He's coming." Tom could see that the woman was young, probably in her mid-20s. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, and her clothes were torn in several places. There were dark marks on her arms that looked like finger-shaped bruises. The baby looked to be only a few months old, wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days. "Ma'am, you're safe now," Tom said, his voice calm and steady. "Get in the truck." He got out and walked around to open the passenger door for her. The woman climbed in carefully, still clutching the baby. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold on to the door handle. "What's your name?" Tom asked as he got back behind the wheel. "Lisa," she whispered, "and this is my daughter, Amy." Tom nodded and started driving toward the main house. "I'm Tom. You're on my family's ranch now. Nobody's going to hurt you here." As they drove, Lisa kept looking over her shoulder through the back window of the truck. "You don't understand," she said. "When he finds out I'm gone, he's going to come looking. He always finds me." "Who's he?" Tom asked, though he was pretty sure he already knew the answer. "My boyfriend, Amy's father." Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "He doesn't like it when I leave the house without permission, and I've never taken Amy anywhere without him before." Tom felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. He'd seen this before. His own sister had been in a similar situation years ago before she finally found the courage to leave her abusive husband. "How did you get way out here?" Lisa shifted the baby to her other arm. "I've been planning this for weeks. Every morning he leaves for work at exactly 7:30. I knew if I ran straight across the fields instead of taking the roads, I might have a chance to get far enough away before he realized I was gone." "You ran all the way from town carrying a baby?" Tom asked, amazed. "The nearest houses were at least 3 miles away," Lisa nodded. "I had to. If I took the car, he would have heard it starting. And I couldn't call anyone because he checks my phone. I just grabbed Amy and started running." Tom could see the main house in the distance now. His grandmother's old farmhouse sat surrounded by oak trees, with a wide front porch and flower boxes under every window. It had been in his family for 3 generations, and it had always been a place where people could find safety and comfort. "My grandmother lives in the house with me," Tom explained. "She's going to want to feed you and the baby, and probably lecture me about driving too fast on the dirt road. But she's good people. You can trust her." For the first time since he'd found her, Lisa seemed to relax slightly. "I don't have anywhere else to go. I don't have any money, and all my family lives in other states. I just knew I had to get Amy away from him before something really bad happened." "You did the right thing," Tom said firmly. "It takes real courage to do what you did." As they pulled up to the house, Tom could see his grandmother Grace standing on the front porch. She was a small woman in her 70s, but she had the kind of presence that made everyone feel like they were about to get a good meal and a warm hug. When she saw Lisa and the baby, her expression immediately shifted to concern and determination. Tom knew that his grandmother would take charge now, the way she always did when someone needed help. But he also knew that this wasn't over. If this man was as controlling and dangerous as Lisa made him sound, he wouldn't just give up because she'd run away. He would come looking for her. And when he did, Tom would be ready for him. Grace was already walking down the porch steps before Tom had even turned off the truck engine. At 73 years old, she moved with the quick, purposeful steps of someone who had spent decades taking care of other people. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore the same style of floral apron she'd been wearing for as long as Tom could remember. "Tom, what on earth?" Grace called out as she approached the passenger side of the truck. Then she saw Lisa holding the baby, and her entire demeanor changed. The curiosity in her voice was instantly replaced by the kind of gentle authority that had made her the unofficial neighborhood grandmother for miles around. "Oh, honey," Grace said softly, opening the truck door. "Come on inside. You look like you've been through quite an ordeal." Lisa hesitated for a moment, looking between Tom and Grace with uncertainty. The baby in her arms had stopped crying, but was making small, hungry sounds that tugged at everyone's heart. "It's okay," Tom said, from behind the wheel. "My grandmother has been taking care of people longer than I've been alive. You're safe here." Grace gently helped Lisa out of the truck, supporting her elbow when her legs seemed unsteady. "When's the last time you ate anything, dear?" she asked, already guiding Lisa toward the house. "Yesterday morning, I think," Lisa admitted. "I was too nervous to eat breakfast before I left." Grace made a disapproving sound with her tongue. "Well, that explains why you look ready to fall over. And this little one needs feeding too, doesn't she?" As they walked up the porch steps, Lisa kept looking back over her shoulder toward the road. "What if he comes here? What if he finds us?" Tom locked the truck and followed them toward the house. "This ranch is 3,000 acres and there's only one road in. Anyone coming here will see them long before they see us." Grace led them through the front door into the spacious living room. The house smelled like fresh coffee and the lavender soap Grace had been making for years. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains onto comfortable furniture that had been chosen for coziness rather than style. "Sit down right here," Grace said, pointing to the large sofa near the window. "Tom, go get that old baby bassinet from the attic. It's been up there since your cousin's kids were little, but it's still good." Tom nodded and headed for the stairs. As he climbed to the second floor, he could hear his grandmother already bustling around in the kitchen, opening cabinets and starting what sounded like a full-scale meal preparation operation. In the dusty attic, Tom found the bassinet exactly where Grace said it would be. It was made of white wicker and had somehow survived 3 generations of family babies. He also grabbed a box of baby clothes that his sister had left behind years ago. Thinking some of them might fit Amy. When he came back downstairs, he found Lisa on the sofa, trying to feed the baby with a bottle that Grace must have prepared. Lisa's hands were still shaking slightly, and she kept glancing toward the windows. "Here," Grace said, sitting down next to Lisa. "Let me show you how to hold her so she can eat better." Tom watched as his grandmother gently adjusted Lisa's position, supporting both her arms so the baby could drink more easily. It was the same patient, caring approach Grace had used with every scared animal and worried person who had ever found their way to this house. "Now then," Grace said once Amy was drinking contentedly, "why don't you tell us what happened?" "Take your time." Lisa took a deep breath. "His name is Brad. We've been together for 2 years, since before Amy was born. At first, he was really sweet and caring. But after Amy came along, everything changed." Tom sat down in the chair across from them, leaning forward to listen. He'd heard similar stories before, but it never got easier. "He started saying I couldn't leave the house without asking permission first," Lisa continued. "Then he took away my car keys and said I didn't need to drive anywhere because he could take me wherever I needed to go. He made me quit my job because he said taking care of Amy should be my only responsibility." Grace made sympathetic sounds, while gently stroking Amy's head. "What about your family, dear? Don't you have anyone who could help? My parents live in Oregon, and my sister is in college in California. Brad made me stop calling them months ago. He said they were trying to turn me against him." Lisa's voice got quieter. "I started to believe maybe he was right. Maybe I was being ungrateful." Tom felt his jaw tighten. "That's not being ungrateful, that's being controlled." "I know that now," Lisa said. "But when you're in the middle of it, when someone is telling you every day that you're doing everything wrong, it's hard to think clearly." Grace nodded knowingly. "I've seen it before, honey. Some people have a way of making you doubt your own mind." "The breaking point came yesterday," Lisa continued. "Amy was crying because she was hungry and I was trying to warm up her bottle. But Brad said I was taking too long, and he grabbed her out of my arms really roughly. Amy started crying even harder, and when I tried to take her back, he pushed me against the wall." Tom's hands clenched into fists, but he kept his voice calm. "Did he hurt Amy?" "No, but I could see that he might. The way he was holding her, so tight and angry. I realized that if I didn't get her out of there, something terrible was going to happen." Lisa shifted Amy to her other arm. "That's when I knew I had to leave, no matter what." Grace stood up and headed toward the kitchen. "You did exactly the right thing. Nobody should have to live in fear like that." "But what am I going to do now?" Lisa asked, looking at Tom with desperate eyes. "I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have any money. All my clothes and Amy's things are back at the house." Tom leaned back in his chair, thinking. "First thing we need to do is make sure you and Amy are safe. Everything else we can figure out after that." "But what if he comes here? What if he hurts you and your grandmother because you helped me?" "Let me worry about that," Tom said firmly. "Brad might think he can intimidate a woman and a baby, but he's never dealt with anyone like my family." Grace returned from the kitchen carrying a plate loaded with scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. "Here you go, dear. You need to keep your strength up." Lisa looked at the food gratefully. "I can't pay you for this." "I can't pay you for anything." "Nonsense," Grace said, waving her hand dismissively. "When my Tom was a little boy, his mother used to tell him that we help people because it's the right thing to do, not because we expect something in return." As Lisa began to eat, Tom noticed that she kept looking toward the road through the living room window. He could see the worry in her eyes, the constant fear that Brad would somehow find them. "Lisa," Tom said gently, "how well does Brad know this area? Would he think to look for you out here?" Lisa paused with a forkful of eggs halfway to her mouth. "I don't think so. We've never been out this way before. But he's really determined when he wants something." And he's not going to just let me leave, Tom nodded grimly. Then we better start preparing for the possibility that he might come looking. After Lisa finished eating, Grace showed her to the guest bedroom upstairs. It was a cozy room with pale yellow walls and white curtains that let in just enough sunlight to make everything feel warm and peaceful. The bed was covered with one of Grace's handmade quilts, and there was an old rocking chair by the window that had been Tom's mother's favorite spot for reading. "This was my daughter's room when she was growing up," Grace explained, setting the wicker bassinet next to the bed. "She raised 3 children in this house, and they all turned out just fine." Lisa sat on the edge of the bed, gently bouncing Amy, who had started to get fussy again. "I don't know how to thank you for this, both of you. I was so scared when I was running across that field. I thought maybe I'd made a terrible mistake." "The only mistake would have been staying," Grace said firmly, pulling some fresh towels from the linen closet. "Now, there's a bathroom right across the hall. You take a nice hot shower and get cleaned up. I'll watch Amy for you." Lisa hesitated. "Are you sure? She can be really difficult sometimes, especially when she's tired." Grace smiled and held out her arms. "Honey, I raised 4 children and helped with 7 grandchildren. I think I can handle one little baby for 30 minutes. Reluctantly, Lisa handed Amy over to Grace. The baby immediately settled against Grace's shoulder, as if she somehow knew she was in safe hands. Lisa watched for a moment, amazed at how quickly Grace had calmed. Her daughter, "Go on," Grace encouraged. "Take your time. There's shampoo and soap in the shower, and I'll leave some clean clothes on the bed for you." While Lisa was upstairs, Tom sat at the kitchen table with his cell phone, trying to figure out their next steps. He'd called his friend Jake, who worked as a deputy sheriff in the county, but Jake was out on patrol and wouldn't be back until evening. Grace came downstairs carrying Amy, who was now sleeping peacefully. "That poor girl hasn't had a moment's rest in who knows how long," she said, settling into her favorite chair with the baby. "You can see it in her eyes." "I know," Tom said, closing his phone. "I've been trying to think about what we should do if this Brad character shows up here." "You think he will?" Tom looked out the kitchen window toward the long driveway that led to the main road. "Lisa seems to think he's the type who doesn't give up easily. And men like that, they don't like losing control." Grace rocked gently back, and forth her experienced hand supporting Amy perfectly. "Your grandfather used to say that bullies are usually cowards at heart. They pick on people who can't fight back, but they run when they meet someone who stands up to them." "Maybe," Tom said. "But we can't count on that. If he's desperate enough or angry enough, he might try something stupid." They heard the shower turn off upstairs, followed by the sound of Lisa moving around in the guest room. Tom went to the front window and looked out across the ranch land. Everything was peaceful and quiet, the way it had been every day of his life. But somehow today felt different. There was a tension in the air that hadn't been there that morning. 20 minutes later, Lisa came downstairs wearing a pair of Grace's old jeans and a soft blue sweater. Her hair was clean and pulled back in a simple ponytail, and the dirt and tears had been washed from her face. She looked younger somehow, and more like the person she probably was before fear became a constant part of her life. "I feel almost human again," she said, taking Amy from Grace's arms. "Thank you so much for the clothes." "Keep them," Grace said. "They're too small for me now anyway." Lisa sat down at the kitchen table with them, cradling Amy against her chest. "I've been thinking while I was upstairs. I need to call my sister in California. She's always told me that if I ever needed help, I could call her anytime." Tom pushed his phone across the table to her. "Go ahead. Make the call." Lisa dialed a number and waited while it rang. Tom and Grace tried not to listen, but it was impossible not to hear her side of the conversation. "Kelly, it's me, Lisa." There was a pause. I know it's been months since we talked. Brad didn't want me calling anyone, but Kelly, I need help." Her voice started to shake. "I left him today. I took Amy and I ran." Tom could hear excited talking from the other end of the phone, though he couldn't make out the words. "I'm safe right now," Lisa continued. I'm with some really kind people who are helping me. But I don't know what to do next. Another pause. California? Are you serious? You would do that for me? The conversation continued for several more minutes, with Lisa sometimes crying and sometimes laughing with relief. When she finally hung up, she looked at Tom and Grace with the first real smile they'd seen from her. My sister wants me to come to California, she said. She's going to send me money for bus tickets, and she says Amy and I can stay with her as long as we need to. That sounds like a good plan, Tom said. How long will it take for the money to get here? She's going to wire it to the bank in town this afternoon. I could probably leave tomorrow morning if I wanted to. Grace reached over and patted Lisa's hand. That's wonderful, dear. It'll be good for you to be with family. But even as they were making these positive plans, Tom noticed that Lisa kept glancing nervously toward the windows. The fear was still there, just beneath the surface. What's wrong? He asked gently. Lisa shifted Amy to her other arm. I keep thinking about what Brad's going to do when he gets home from work and realizes we're gone. He usually calls me around lunchtime to check on me, and when I don't answer, when does he usually get home? Tom asked. Around 6:30. But if he can't reach me on the phone, he might come home early to check on me. Tom looked at the clock on the kitchen wall. It was just past 11 in the morning. That meant they potentially had several hours before Brad discovered Lisa was missing, but it also meant the danger was growing closer with each passing minute. Lisa, Tom said carefully, I need to ask you something important. Does Brad own any guns? The color drained from Lisa's face. He has a hunting rifle and a handgun. He likes to clean them while he's watching TV. He says it relaxes him. Grace and Tom exchanged worried looks. This changed everything. If Brad was armed and desperate, the situation could become very dangerous very quickly. Okay, Tom said, trying to keep his voice calm. That's good information to have. It means we need to be extra careful. Maybe I should just leave now, Lisa said, standing up abruptly. I don't want you and Grace to get hurt because of me. Sit down, Grace said firmly. You're not going anywhere until we know you and that baby are truly safe. Tom, call your friend the deputy again. Tom was already reaching for his phone. I'm on it. As he dialed Jake's number, Tom realized that their peaceful morning had officially become something much more complicated. But looking at Lisa holding her baby, seeing the hope mixed with fear in her eyes, he knew they were doing the right thing. The question now was whether they were prepared for what might be coming their way. Jake's voicemail picked up again, and Tom left another message asking his deputy friend to call back as soon as possible. He set the phone down and looked at Lisa, who was pacing around the kitchen with Amy, unable to sit still. I can't stop thinking about what he's going to do, Lisa said for the third time in 10 minutes. Brad doesn't handle surprises well. When he gets angry, he breaks things. Last month, he punched a hole in the living room wall because dinner wasn't ready when he got home. Grace was at the stove making a fresh pot of coffee, but Tom could tell she was listening to every word. His grandmother had lived through enough difficult times to know when a situation was about to get serious. Has he ever hurt you before today? Tom asked gently. Lisa stopped pacing and looked down at Amy, who was sleeping peacefully despite all the tension in the room. Not really hurt, exactly. More like grabbing my arm too hard or pushing me when he was frustrated. He always said sorry afterward and promised it wouldn't happen again. But it did happen again, Grace said without turning around from the stove. Every time, Lisa admitted. And it was getting worse. Yesterday, when he grabbed Amy so roughly, I saw something different in his eyes. Something that scared me more than anything he'd ever done before. Tom walked to the front window and scanned the horizon. The ranch was surrounded by rolling hills and scattered oak trees with the main road visible as a thin line about a mile away. Anyone driving toward the house would be easy to spot long before they arrived. Lisa, does Brad know anyone else in this county? Any friends or coworkers who might tell him they saw you out here? I don't think so. He works at the auto parts store in town, but most of his friends live closer to the city. We don't really go out much. Lisa sat down at the table, shifting Amy to her shoulder. Actually, we don't go out at all. Brad says it's a waste of money, Tom nodded, filing away that information. The more isolated Brad had kept Lisa, the less likely he was to have contacts who might help him search for her. That was good news. The phone rang, making everyone jump. Tom grabbed it quickly, hoping it was Jake returning his call. Hello? Tom, it's Jake. Got your messages. What's going on out there? Tom stepped into the living room where he could talk more privately. I've got a situation here. Found a woman and her baby this morning who are running from an abusive boyfriend. She says he owns guns and has a history of getting violent when he's angry. Okay, slow down. Tell me everything from the beginning. Tom explained how he'd found Lisa running across the field, what she'd told them about Brad, and their concerns about what might happen when Brad discovered she was missing. Jake listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. All right, Jake said when Tom finished. First thing, this woman needs to file a report if she wants any official protection. Can she do that? I think so. She's pretty shaken up, but she seems ready to take action. Good, I can come out there this afternoon to take her statement. Or she can come into the station. Either way works. Jake paused. But Tom, if this guy is as dangerous as she says, you need to be careful. Don't try to handle this yourself if he shows up. What should I do if he comes here before you can get involved? Call 911 immediately. Don't try to be a hero. These domestic situations can turn violent real fast, especially when the guy feels like he's losing control. Tom understood what Jake was saying, but he also knew there was no way he was going to let anyone hurt Lisa or Amy while they were under his roof. I hear you, Jake, but I'm not going to just stand by if someone comes here threatening a woman. And a baby. I know you won't. Just be smart about it. I'll try to get out there by this afternoon. After Tom hung up, he returned to the kitchen where Grace and Lisa were sitting quietly at the table. Lisa looked up at him hopefully. My friend, Jake is a deputy sheriff. He's going to come out here later today to take your statement and help us figure out the best way to keep you safe. Lisa nodded, but Tom could see the worry still etched on her face. What time does Brad usually call to check on you? Around noon, sometimes earlier if he's not busy at work. Tom looked at the clock. It was 11:45. In just a few minutes, Brad would probably try to call Lisa and discover that she wasn't answering her phone. That's when the real danger would begin. What happens when you don't answer his calls? Grace asked. He keeps calling, over and over until I pick up. One time, my phone battery died and I didn't know it. When he got home that night, he was so angry he threw my phone against the wall and broke it. Then he made me pay for a new one out of my grocery money. Tom felt his anger rising again, but he forced himself to stay calm. Getting emotional wouldn't help anyone right now? Does he know where you might go if you left? Any friends or family nearby? That's just it, Lisa said, tears starting to form in her eyes. He made sure I don't have anywhere to go. He convinced me to stop talking to my friends because he said they were jealous of our relationship. He moved us away from my family. He made me quit my job so I wouldn't have any money of my own. Grace reached over and squeezed Lisa's hand. That's what people like him do, honey. They isolate you so you feel like you can't survive without them. But I did survive, Lisa said, looking down at Amy with fierce determination. I got her away. Yes, you did, Tom said. And we're going to make sure you stay away. Just then, they heard the sound of a vehicle coming down the gravel driveway. Tom's heart jumped, but when he looked out the window, he saw it was just his neighbor, Carlos, bringing back a tool he'd borrowed last week. Carlos was a good man in his 50s who owned the ranch next door. He worked as a mechanic in town and had always been helpful when Tom needed an extra pair of hands around the ranch. Tom went outside to talk to him, thinking it might be good to have another ally nearby. Hey, Carlos, thanks for bringing back the post-hole digger. No problem, Tom. Say, I saw something kind of strange on my way over here. There was a black pickup truck driving real slow along County Road 47, like the driver was looking for something. You know anybody who drives a truck like that? Tom's blood went cold. County Road 47 ran along the eastern border of their property. If someone was driving slowly along that road, they were definitely searching for something. What did the driver look like? Couldn't see him real clear, but he looked like a younger guy. Dark hair, seemed pretty intense about whatever he was looking for. Tom thanked Carlos and watched him drive away, his mind racing. It was possible that the truck Carlos had seen had nothing to do with Brad, but the timing was too much of a coincidence. He went back inside where Grace and Lisa were waiting anxiously. "What is it?" Lisa asked, seeing the expression on his face. Tom sat down at the table, trying to decide how much to tell her. "My neighbor just saw a black pickup truck driving slowly along the road that borders our property." The driver looked like he was searching for something. Lisa's face went white. "Oh no, oh no, oh no, that's Brad's truck. He found me somehow." Lisa's face had gone completely white, and her hands started shaking so badly that Tom was worried she might drop. "Amy!" Grace immediately stood up and put her arms around both Lisa and the baby, guiding them away from the windows. "Are you sure it was his truck?" Tom asked, though he could already see the answer in Lisa's terrified expression. "Black Chevy pickup with a dent in the front bumper and a crack in the windshield," Lisa whispered. "That's Brad's truck." "But how did he find me so fast? I thought I had more time." Tom moved to the window and carefully looked out toward the road. He couldn't see any vehicles from this angle, but that didn't mean they weren't out there. "Maybe he came home early from work. Or maybe someone saw you running and told him which direction you went." "We need to call the police right now," Grace said firmly. "That deputy friend of yours needs to get out here immediately." Lisa was pacing again, holding Amy tightly against her chest. "You don't understand. Brad is really smart when he wants to be. If he thinks the police are involved, he'll just wait. He'll watch the house until he finds the right moment. He's patient when it comes to getting what he wants." Tom grabbed his phone and dialed Jake's number again. This time the deputy answered on the second ring. "Jake, it's Tom. That situation I told you about just got urgent. The boyfriend's truck was spotted near my property about 10 minutes ago. I'm 20 minutes out. Can you get the woman and baby somewhere safe until I arrive?" Tom looked around the farmhouse. It was built solid, but it wasn't designed to be a fortress. "I don't know where would be safer than here." "Okay, listen carefully. Keep everyone away from the windows. If he shows up, don't engage with him. Just call 911 and wait for backup. These situations can go bad real quick." "What if he tries to force his way in?" There was a pause. "Do what you have to do to protect innocent people, but be smart about it. I'll be there as fast as I can." Tom hung up and looked at Grace and Lisa, both of whom had been listening to his side of the conversation. "Jake's on his way, but it's going to be about 20 minutes. 20 minutes, Lisa repeated, as if she was trying to calculate whether that was enough time or not. "Brad's probably driving around looking for any sign that I came this way. If he sees Jake's patrol car coming down your driveway, ... What?" Tom asked. "He'll know I'm here, and he'll know I called the police on him. That will make him even angrier than he already is." Grace had been quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up with the voice of someone who had lived through difficult times before. "Lisa, honey, I need you to tell us exactly what Brad is capable of. Not what you hope he might do, but what you really think he'll do if he finds you here." Lisa sat down heavily at the kitchen table, still holding Amy. "If it was just me, he'd probably try to drag me back to the house and lock me in the bedroom until he figured out a way to make sure I never tried to leave again. But because I took Amy—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "What about Amy?" Tom pressed gently. "He's always said that Amy belongs to him, that I'm just the person who takes care of her until she's old enough to not need me anymore. If he thinks I'm trying to take her away from him permanently ... Lisa's voice broke. "I don't know what he might do." Tom felt a cold anger settle in his stomach. He'd dealt with plenty of difficult situations in his life, but the idea of someone threatening a baby made him feel something he'd never experienced before. "Grace, I want you to take Lisa and Amy upstairs to the back bedroom. It's the furthest room from the driveway, and it has a good view of the fields behind the house." "What are you going to do?" Grace asked. "I'm going to watch the front of the property and make sure we know if anyone comes down that driveway." Lisa stood up suddenly. "No, I can't let you do this." I can't let you and Grace get hurt because of my problems. Maybe I should just go talk to him. Maybe I can convince him to let me take Amy to my sister's house for a visit. And then, absolutely not, Tom said firmly. Lisa, look at me. You are not going back to someone who hurts you. You are not putting that baby in danger. And you are definitely not going to try to reason with someone who thinks he owns other people. Grace nodded in agreement. Tom's right, dear. Running away from that man was the smartest thing you've ever done. Don't let fear make you go backward now. Through the kitchen window, Tom caught a glimpse of sunlight reflecting off metal far down the driveway. His heart started beating faster. Someone's coming. All three of them moved to the window, staying low so they couldn't be seen from outside. In the distance, a black pickup truck was slowly making its way down the gravel road toward the house. That's him, Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. That's Brad. The truck was moving very slowly, as if the driver was being careful not to make too much noise or attract attention. Tom could see that there was only one person in the vehicle, and even from this distance, he could tell the driver was looking carefully at everything around the house. He's looking for my car, Lisa said. He knows I don't have one, so he's trying to figure out how I got here. The truck stopped about halfway down the driveway, still several hundred yards from the house. Tom could see the driver's door open, and a man got out. Even from this distance, Tom could tell he was young and athletic, with the kind of confident posture that suggested he was used to getting his way. What's he doing? Grace whispered. The man walked around to the back of his truck and pulled out what looked like a pair of binoculars. He raised them to his eyes and began systematically scanning the house and the surrounding area. He's trying to see if anyone's home, Tom said. And he's probably looking for signs that you're here. Lisa was holding Amy so tightly that the baby started to fuss. He's going to come to the door. He always acts really polite and friendly when he's trying to get what he wants from strangers. What do you mean? Tom asked. He'll probably tell you some story about how his girlfriend and baby are missing, and he's worried sick about them. He'll seem like a concerned father who just wants to make sure his family is safe. People always believe him because he's really good at acting like the victim. Tom watched as the man with the binoculars continued his surveillance of the property. After a few minutes, he lowered the binoculars and walked back to his truck. But instead of driving away, he drove the truck off the main driveway and parked it behind a grove of trees where it would be hidden from view of the house. That's not good, Tom said. What's he doing now? Grace asked. Tom grabbed his own binoculars from the kitchen drawer and focused on the area where the truck had disappeared. After a moment, he saw the man emerge from behind the trees. He was walking toward the house on foot, staying low and using the natural landscape to hide his approach. He's coming, Tom said. And he's not planning to knock on the front door and ask politely. Tom watched through his binoculars as Brad moved carefully from tree to tree, getting closer to the house with each step. The man was clearly trying to stay hidden, which told Tom everything he needed to know about Brad's intentions. This wasn't going to be a friendly conversation. Grace, take Lisa and Amy upstairs right now, Tom said quietly but firmly. Go to the back bedroom and stay away from the windows. What about you? Grace asked, though she was already guiding Lisa toward the stairs. I'm going to handle this. Lisa stopped at the bottom of the staircase and turned back to Tom. Please don't try to fight him. He's stronger than he looks, and he gets really violent when he's angry. Just tell him you haven't seen me. I'm not going to lie for him, Tom said. And I'm definitely not going to pretend I don't know what kind of man he is. But if you make him mad, Lisa, Tom interrupted gently, go upstairs with Grace. Trust me to handle this. After they disappeared up the stairs, Tom went to the gun cabinet in his father's old study. He pulled out a shotgun and loaded it with 2 shells, then grabbed a box of extra ammunition. He wasn't looking for a fight, but he wasn't going to be caught unprepared either. Tom positioned himself in the living room, where he could see both the front door and the driveway through different windows. He set the shotgun against the wall within easy reach but not visible from outside. Then he waited. It didn't take long. Within 5 minutes, Tom heard footsteps on the front porch. They were careful, quiet steps, like someone trying not to be. Heard, Tom moved to the front window and looked out. Brad was standing on the porch, but he wasn't at the front door yet. Instead, he was looking through the living room window, cupping his hands around his eyes to see better into the house. When he saw Tom looking back at him, Brad stepped back and smiled like they were old friends. The smile was the most unsettling thing Tom had seen all day. It was perfectly friendly and completely fake at the same time. Brad walked to the front door and knocked 3 times, still wearing that strange smile. Tom took a deep breath and opened the door, making sure to keep his body positioned so Brad couldn't see into the house behind him. "Hey there," Brad said in a voice that sounded genuinely cheerful. "Sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my girlfriend and my baby daughter. They went missing this morning and I'm worried sick about them." Tom had to admit that Lisa was right about Brad's acting ability. If Tom didn't know the real story, he might have believed that this was just a concerned father looking for his family. "Missing how?" Tom asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Well, I went to work this morning like always, and when I tried to call my girlfriend around lunchtime, she didn't answer. I came home and the house was empty. No note, no explanation, nothing." Brad shook his head like he was genuinely confused. "I've been driving around town all afternoon looking for them." "Did you call the police?" For just a split second, something flickered across Brad's face. Anger, maybe, or frustration. But the friendly smile was back so quickly that Tom almost thought he'd imagined it. "Not yet. I was hoping to find them myself first. You know how it is with women sometimes. They get upset about something small and do something dramatic to get attention. I'm sure Lisa just went for a walk with the baby and lost track of time." Tom noticed how Brad had casually mentioned Lisa's name, as if he was testing to see if Tom would react to it. "What makes you think they might be out this way?" "Oh, I'm just checking everywhere. This is pretty far from town, but I figured maybe." Lisa got confused and wandered off in the wrong direction. She's not real good with directions. Brad's smile got a little wider. "You haven't seen a young woman with a baby, have you? Brown hair, about 5'4". The baby's just a few months old." Tom looked directly into Brad's eyes. "Can't say that I have." Brad glanced past Tom toward the interior of the house. "Mind if I take a look around, just to make sure? I'm really worried about them being out in this heat with nowhere to go." "Yes, I do mind," Tom said firmly. "This is private property." The fake smile faltered for a moment. "I understand that, but my girlfriend and baby might be in danger. Surely you can understand a father's concern for his child's safety. If you're that worried, you should call the sheriff's department. They're trained to handle missing person cases." Brad's expression was starting to change. The friendly mask was slipping, and Tom could see the anger underneath. "Look, I don't think you understand the situation here. My girlfriend has some mental health issues. She's not thinking clearly right now. If she's hiding somewhere on your property with my baby, they could both be in serious danger." "What kind of mental health issues?" Tom asked. "She gets paranoid. Sometimes. Thinks people are trying to hurt her when they're really trying to help. She might have told you some crazy story about me being abusive or something like that." Brad laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I would never hurt Lisa or Amy. I love them both more than anything in the world." Tom noticed that Brad had mentioned Amy's name now, too. He was definitely fishing for information, trying to see how much Tom knew. "Like I said, I haven't seen anyone matching that description." Brad studied Tom's face carefully, as if he was trying to decide whether to believe him or not. "You know, it's funny. I could have sworn I saw footprints in the dirt near your driveway." "Small footprints, like a woman might make? Lots of people have small feet," Tom said. "That's true." Brad stepped closer to the door. "But not many people are running barefoot across ranch land carrying a baby." Tom felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his expression calm. "I think it's time for you to leave. I think it's time for you to stop lying to me." The friendly mask was completely gone. Now, Brad's voice had turned cold and threatening, and his whole posture had changed. He was no longer pretending to be a worried father. Now he looked like exactly what he was, a dangerous man who was used to getting his way through intimidation. I... No, they're here, Brad continued. I saw the footprints. I saw where someone helped her into a vehicle right where your driveway meets the main road. Lisa's in your house right now, isn't she? Tom stepped back slightly and let his hand rest on the doorframe, ready to slam it shut if necessary. I think you need to leave my property right now. I'm not going anywhere without my family. Brad's voice was getting louder. Lisa, I know you can hear me. Come out here right now and bring Amy with you. Tom could hear movement upstairs, and he hoped Grace was keeping Lisa calm and quiet. The last thing they needed was for Lisa to panic and do something that would give away their location. Lisa! Brad shouted again. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You know you can't take care of Amy by yourself. You need me. When there was no response from inside the house, Brad turned, his attention back to Tom. You're making a big mistake, old man. You don't know what you're getting involved in. I know exactly what I'm getting involved in, Tom said quietly. And you're right about one thing. It doesn't have to be hard. What's that supposed to mean? Tom looked Brad directly in the eyes and said the words that would change everything. It means not anymore. The words, not anymore, seemed to hang in the air between them. Tom watched as Brad's face went through several different expressions in the span of a few seconds. First confusion, then understanding, and finally pure rage. What did you just say to me? Brad asked, his voice low and dangerous. I said not anymore, Tom repeated calmly. Whatever you think you had control over, whatever you think you owned, that's finished now. Brad took a step closer to the door, and Tom could see his hands clenching into fists. You have no idea who you're messing with, old man. Lisa belongs to me. That baby belongs to me. You can't just decide to keep my family away from me. I'm not keeping anyone from anything, Tom said. I'm just standing on my own property, having a conversation with someone who needs to leave. This isn't over. You're right about that. Tom's voice stayed steady and calm, but there was steel underneath it. It's not over. It's just different now. Brad looked past Tom again, trying to see into the house. Lisa, I know you're in there. You can't hide from me forever. Sooner or later, you're going to have to come home. From upstairs, they could hear the faint sound of Amy crying. The baby's cries seemed to make Brad even more agitated. See? Amy needs her father. She's scared and confused because you took her away from her home. Brad raised his voice so it would carry into the house. Lisa, you're being selfish. Think about what's best for Amy. Tom felt his patience starting to run out. The only person scaring that baby is you, standing out here yelling like a crazy person. Crazy? Brad's voice cracked a little. I'm crazy for wanting my family back. I'm crazy for trying to protect my daughter from someone who would steal her away from her father. You're not protecting anyone. You're threatening people? I'm not threatening anybody. I'm just trying to get my girlfriend and my baby back. But even as Brad said the words, his hand moved to his jacket pocket. Tom caught the movement and tensed, ready to grab the shotgun if necessary. What's in your pocket? Tom asked directly. Brad's hand froze. Nothing that's any of your business? Everything on my property is my business. For a long moment they stared at each other. Tom could see Brad calculating, trying to decide what his next move should be. The fake friendliness was completely gone now, replaced by something much more dangerous. You know what I think? Brad said finally, I think you've got some kind of hero complex. You see a pretty girl with a sad story, and you think you're going to save her. I think you should get back in your truck and drive away. But here's what you don't understand, Brad continued, ignoring Tom's suggestion. Lisa isn't some innocent victim. She's a liar. She's probably told you all kinds of stories about how mean I am to her, but she left out the part where she steals money from me. She left out the part where she threatens to take Amy away every time we have an argument. Tom didn't respond. He'd heard enough stories like this to know that abusers always had explanations for why their victims deserved what happened to them. She's using you, Brad said, his voice taking on a persuasive tone. She's probably planning to rob you blind and disappear in the middle of the night. That's what she does. That's who she is. If that's true, then you should be happy to be rid of her. Brad's mask slipped again. Amy is my daughter. I have rights. So does she. She's a baby. She doesn't know what's best for her. But you do? I'm her father. Tom looked at Brad with disgust. Being a father is more than just contributing DNA. It's about protecting your child, not scaring her. You don't know anything about being a father, Brad snapped. You're just some lonely old man living out here in the middle of nowhere with his grandmother. Tom felt his own anger starting to rise, but he kept it under control. Getting emotional would only make the situation more dangerous. Maybe so, Tom said. But I know the difference between love and control. Love and control? Brad laughed bitterly. You think Lisa loves you? You think she's going to stick around once she gets whatever she wants from you? This isn't about me. Everything's about you, isn't it? You get to be the hero. You get to rescue the damsel in distress. But what happens next week when the excitement wears off? What happens when you realize that taking care of a woman and a baby is harder than you thought? Tom could hear the sound of a vehicle approaching in the distance. He hoped it was Jake arriving with backup, but he couldn't take his eyes off Brad to look and see that Brad heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound, and Tom saw something change in his expression. Desperation, maybe. The realization that whatever he was planning to do, he was running out of time to do it. Last chance, Brad said, turning back to Tom. Bring Lisa and Amy out here right now, and I'll forget this whole thing ever happened. No, you're making a big mistake. The only mistake I made was not calling the sheriff the minute I saw your truck. Brad's hand moved back to his jacket pocket, and this time he didn't try to hide it. Maybe you should have. Tom reached for the door handle, ready to slam it shut and grab his shotgun. But before either of them could make another move, they heard the sound of car doors slamming and footsteps running toward the house. Sheriff's Department, a voice called out. Everyone stay where you are? Jake appeared around the corner of the house with his gun drawn, followed by another deputy Tom didn't recognize. Both officers were moving quickly but carefully, their weapons pointed at the ground but ready to be raised if necessary. Hands where I can see them. Jake shouted. Brad immediately raised his hands, but Tom could see the calculation in his eyes. He was trying to figure out how to spin this situation to make himself look like the victim. Officers, thank God you're here, Brad said, his voice suddenly taking on that fake friendly tone again. This man has been holding my girlfriend and baby hostage. I've been trying to get them back peacefully, but he won't let me see them. Jake looked at Tom. That true? Not even close, Tom said. This man has been threatening me and trying to force his way into my house. That's a lie, Brad protested. I just want to see my family. I haven't threatened anyone. The second deputy was walking around the house, checking for other vehicles or people. Jake kept his attention focused on the situation in front of him. Sir, I need you to slowly remove your hands from your pockets and keep them visible, Jake said to Brad. I'm not armed, Brad said, but he didn't move his hands. Remove your hands from your pockets now. Reluctantly, Brad pulled his right hand out of his jacket pocket. In his palm was a small black pistol. Drop the weapon, Jake shouted, raising his own gun. The peaceful morning on the ranch had just become something much more serious. The small black pistol hit the porch floor with a loud clatter. Jake and the second deputy immediately moved in, ordering Brad to get on his knees with his hands behind his head. Brad complied, but Tom could see the anger burning in his eyes, even as he followed the officer's commands. Check him for other weapons, Jake told his partner while keeping his own gun trained on Brad. The second deputy, whose name tag read Rodriguez, quickly patted Brad down and found a knife clipped inside his back pocket. Another weapon here, Rodriguez announced, holding up a folding knife with a 4-inch blade. Tom felt his blood run cold. Brad hadn't just come here to argue or make threats. He'd come prepared for violence. I have a permit for the gun, Brad said as Rodriguez handcuffed him. And the knife is just a work tool. I use it at the auto parts store. We'll check on that permit, Jake said. Right now, you're under arrest for carrying a concealed weapon while trespassing and making threats. I wasn't trespassing. I was looking for my missing family. And I never threatened anybody, Jake looked at Tom. Is that true? He's been threatening me for the past 15 minutes. Told me I was making a big mistake and that I didn't know who I was messing with. That's not threatening, Brad protested. That's just conversation. Rodriguez helped Brad to his feet and started walking him toward the patrol car. You can explain all about your conversation down at the station. As they put Brad in the back of the police car, Tom could hear him still talking, still trying to convince the officers that he was the real victim in all of this. Even with handcuffs on and sitting in a patrol car, Brad hadn't given up on his story. Jake stayed behind to talk with Tom. Where's the woman and baby? Upstairs with my grandmother. They're both pretty scared. I'm going to need to talk to them, take their statements. But first, tell me what happened here. Tom explained the entire confrontation from Brad's fake friendly approach to the moment he revealed the gun. Jake took notes and asked several follow-up questions. You said he mentioned the woman's name and the baby's name? Lisa and Amy. He was fishing to see if I knew who he was talking about. And he definitely threatened you? Multiple times. He made it clear he wasn't leaving without them. Jake nodded and put away his notebook. All right, let me go talk to Lisa. The more evidence we can gather, the longer we can keep this guy locked up. They went inside where Grace was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Tom could hear Lisa's voice from upstairs, talking softly to Amy in what sounded like the most relaxed tone he'd heard from her all day. Is it over? Grace asked. It's over, Tom confirmed. They arrested him. Grace let out a long breath she seemed to have been holding for hours. That poor girl. She was so scared when she heard all that yelling outside. Jake went upstairs to interview Lisa while Tom and Grace waited in the kitchen. Through the window, Tom could see Rodriguez sitting in the patrol car with Brad. Even from this distance, he could tell that Brad was still talking. Probably still trying to convince someone that he was the innocent party in all of this. About 30 minutes later, Jake came back downstairs with Lisa, who was carrying Amy. Lisa's eyes were red from crying, but she looked more relieved than scared now. How's she doing? Tom asked. She's been very brave, Jake said. Gave us a detailed statement about the relationship and what happened this morning. Plus, when we ran Brad's name through the system, we found some interesting information. What kind of information? Turns out he's got a history we didn't know about. 2 previous girlfriends filed restraining orders against him in other counties. Both cases involved stalking and harassment after the relationships ended. Lisa sat down at the kitchen table, adjusting Amy in her arms. I never knew about other girlfriends. He told me I was the first woman he'd ever lived with. That's pretty common, Jake explained. Guys like this, they tend to move around when things get too hot in one place. They find new victims who don't know their history. Grace put a fresh cup of coffee in front of Lisa. What happens now? Well, Brad's going to be charged with several crimes. Trespassing, making terroristic threats, carrying a weapon while committing a crime. With his history, he's looking at some serious jail time. But what about later? Lisa asked quietly. What happens when he gets out? Jake sat down across from her. That's something we need to talk about. First, you'll need to file for a restraining order. That creates a legal paper trail and gives us more options if he tries to contact you. Second, you should seriously consider that trip to California you mentioned. My sister already wired the money for bus tickets, Lisa said. I can leave tomorrow if I want to. I think that's a good idea, Jake said. Distance is your friend in situations like this. The farther away you are, the harder it is for him to find you or cause problems. Tom had been quiet during this conversation. But now he spoke up. What about her things? Her clothes and Amy's stuff? We can arrange for an escort to go to the house and collect her belongings, Jake said. But honestly, Lisa, if there's nothing there you absolutely can't live without, it might be better to just start fresh. Lisa nodded. Most of it was his stuff anyway. He never let me buy anything without his permission. Over the next hour, Jake finished taking everyone's statements and explained the legal process that would follow. Brad would be held overnight at the county jail and arraigned. In the morning, depending on whether he could make bail, he might be released within a few days. But the restraining order will be in effect by then, Jake assured Lisa. If he comes within 500 feet of you, he goes straight back to jail. After Jake left, the house felt strangely quiet. Tom, Grace, and Lisa sat in the living room while Amy slept peacefully in her bassinet. It was hard to believe that just a few hours ago they'd been in the middle of such a dangerous situation. I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't found me this morning, Lisa said to Tom. If I'd been out there on foot when Brad came looking for me. Don't think about that, Grace said firmly. Think about what did happen. You were brave enough to leave, smart enough to keep running until you found help, and strong enough to do what was best for Amy. Lisa looked down at her sleeping daughter. I was so scared I was making the wrong choice. Brad always said I couldn't take care of her by myself. Brad was wrong about a lot of things, Tom said. You're going to do just fine. The next morning, Carlos drove Lisa and Amy to the bus station while Tom and Grace watched from the front porch. Lisa had hugged them both goodbye, promising to call when she reached California safely. Think we'll ever see her again? Grace asked as the truck disappeared down the driveway. Tom watched until the dust settled on the road. Maybe, but whether we do or not, she's got a chance now. Yesterday she didn't have that. Grace nodded and headed back into the house. Tom stayed on the porch for a few more minutes, thinking about how a simple morning of fence repair had turned into something that would probably change several lives forever. Sometimes being a cowboy really did mean protecting more than just cattle and land. Sometimes it meant standing up and saying not anymore when someone needed to hear it.